Hello, my name's Andrew Voice. I've been a user of mental health services since the 1970s, and I've been a service user representative on many of Seap's recruitment panels as an expert by experience. I'm delighted to be able to introduce Marie Casey, who joined Seap in March 2012 as Chief Executive Officer after having been a trustee for many years.
I'm really looking forward to talking to you about my vision for Seap and advocacy in the future.
To start off, you could tell us a bit about your background in involvement with Seap before becoming Chief Executive Officer.
Okay, well, as you can hear, I grew up in America, but I've been living in the UK since 1978, where I trained as a careers officer. After that, I worked in a voluntary organisation that provided support to young offenders as an alternative to custody. Then we moved down to Hastings, and I got the job as Director of Hastings Voluntary Action. Whilst I was at HVA, the Community Care Act came into being, and you remember that because we were kind of working together at that time, weren't we?
It was implemented in 1992, yes indeed, yes.
Right, and as you remember, the thing that really got us thinking is the Community Care Act was about giving people choice, giving people a voice into how they were going to be cared for and what was going to happen to them when they were living in the community. And it really did worry us that not everybody would actually be able to participate in that equally. Which made us think about advocacy as a model to support people to have a voice and to make their choice properly. We then got funding from charitable sources and were able to develop the forerunners to Seap, which was the Mental Health Advocacy Project. Express, which was a children's advocacy service and an advocacy service for people, adults with learning disabilities. We decided to set up Seap as an overarching organisation for the different advocacy projects, because we thought that would make them more sustainable in the future and give them a stronger voice as well, rather than being 3 small projects. And since leaving HVA, I chaired Hastings and St Leonard's Primary Care Trust, which was quite an interesting experience. And my last job was as Chief Executive of Care for the Carers, which is an East Sussex Carer Centre. I mean, I've had kind of quite a lot of experience in the voluntary sector, in local government and in the NHS, which I hope all brings to bear on my work with Seap.
Going back to those early days of community care, one of the issues was that for a long time many people had resided in large institutions and they'd had all their choices taken away from them. Everything was done for them.
Yeah.
So they needed to be able to make choices in everyday things that we take for granted now, like shopping and travel and where to live and what to eat, those kind of things. They needed to be empowered to enable themselves to live an independent life. How successful do you think that advocacy has become as a way of empowering people to speak up about what's important for them?
The thing about advocacy is that it doesn't take into account the best interests of the individual. It's there alongside the service users to help them make choices, understand what the options are, and have their voices heard. Having an advocate to be beside that person, to be able to speak on their behalf if that's what they want, or to help them think about what they want and to speak up for themselves, has been amazingly successful. And I think that the thing about advocacy, it's not only about that particular experience either. It's not about having a voice for a particular change in circumstances or care plan or whatever. It is about about empowering people to take more control over their life in many other areas as well. Advocacy can play a very, very big role in supporting people who are the most vulnerable. And you mentioned earlier about people who are isolated and have very little contact with the outside world. And the visiting advocacy service would be there to make a relationship with with people there and ensure that their kind of rights are safeguarded. And I'm hoping that, you know, with the growth of the Care Quality Commission and their involvement in inspecting units, that they will think of commissioning advocacy to support people in those places.
Something connected to that, Marie. Advocacy has an important role to play in ensuring people who use local health services and social care services and some national or regional services, it's to help them have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think this is recognised then by those who commission and deliver services?
That is the way government policy is moving. It is about individual choice that is being valued. It is about people having a say. However, I think what most local authorities, and most progressive local authorities recognise is that making those choices isn't always easy for everyone, and people need support. What I hope is that, you know, commissioners and service providers recognise that the investment they put into advocacy actually helps them target their services more effectively and actually leads to people becoming more able to live independently and in the long run save them money. But it needs to be appropriately funded. My worry is that we'll end up with kind of advocacy light, where people are just given information and on that basis they're seen as empowered and they go off.
So do you think that, and are you confident that Seap is well placed to respond effectively to the challenges ahead?
You know, we have well-trained staff, we have a high-quality service that's valued by service users, so I think that goes a long way in our sustainability, if you like. I think we're also very aware of the changes in social and health policy, and in my mind it kind of leads to advocacy being even more important, because when you look at initiatives like, you know, people living independently for longer, being less dependent on welfare and the state, and on having a choice in personalised service, personal budgets, all that kind of thing. That's all about individuals having choice and options. And we have to, you know, make sure that the most vulnerable people have those as well, and those are the people that need support.
Marie, what will Seap look like in 2 or 3 years' time? What will the shape of the organisation be?
As I see Seap as kind of facilitating local advocacy services in local areas. They're not all going to be the same. They're going to be dependent on what local people want in those local areas. But it's a facilitative arrangement rather than a top-down, like, you know, here we are, we're going to tell you in this particular community what kind of advocacy services you need. No, it won't be like that. It'll be, well, this is our experience. How can we help you develop the services that meet your needs at a local level?
Yes, indeed. And to ask people what services they want, not act in best interest, for example.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And thank you for giving us this interview today. Thank you.
And thank you so much for giving your time and asking me the questions. It's been great to see you again.